Welcome to Purpose Uprising, the podcast. This is a deeply personal exploration about what it means to live on purpose. It's really about ordinary people doing extraordinary things simply by being themselves. I'm really excited about this episode because it's about a topic that has had an incredible impact on my own personal self-discovery journey. Human design, otherwise known as the science of differentiation. I love human design because it marries two of my favorite worlds. So I don't know if you know this about me, but I have a science background. So I did my undergrad in chemistry. Then I did my MBA and then fell into marketing. The original goal was to be a doctor, but here we are. Changing the world in other ways. So human design marries two of my favorite worlds. One, the kind of mystic, energetic world of astrology and chakras and the I Ching and ancient Eastern philosophies. It marries that world with the world of modern science. So it blends all of those things with modern quantum physics and biochemistry. So this is what really attracted me to this system. I'm a sucker for any assessment or personality test. I've done them all. The MBTI, the Strengths Finder, the Enneagram. I've done all of them. The DISC assessment. I used to get so excited in the corporate setting when they're like, we're going to do our DISC assessment. I was like, yay! Anything to know more about how people work. Of course, for a long time, it was about how the fuck do I work? Who am I? It's wild that I felt I needed assessments to tell me that. But something that I've learned is that when you have the answers or you have information in the external, it does make it that much easier to access it on the internal. So it is in the internal at the end of the day. All to say, back to my point on human design, which combines these two worlds, right? Energetics and science. Let's go. And so human design is relatively new to me. Relatively new meaning in the last almost 2 years, maybe a year and a half. So I first heard about human design when I was hiring my first coach. So at the time, I was in a senior manager position on a sales development team at a technology startup. And I had been in the role for 2 years. It was a great job. Everything on paper, I was doing so well on paper, but I couldn't shake this feeling that something was missing. And I kept blaming myself for it. Why aren't you grateful for what you have? And I couldn't shake this feeling. And ultimately, that's what led me to hire my first coach. I was like, okay, I've been in therapy for years. I have all of this self-awareness, and I'm just I want to do something about it. And so that's how I found Ali Rizakos, who was the imposter syndrome coach. She's now a LinkedIn business coach, but the imposter syndrome coach. Imposter syndrome, man, that just hit. It hit me right in the feels, right in the heart, because it was exactly what I was experiencing. I was just I know that I'm meant for something more, but I don't feel worthy of it. I don't feel ready for it. I felt like I was playing a role that wasn't mine. So Ali was able to put this into words so well. When I first met her, I was like, yep, you're who I need. And one of the first questions she asked me was, what's your human design? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that was literally the first time I ever heard about human design. It was through my coach. And immediately I was like, I'm so intrigued. I'm going to go research human design. And I Googled it and I found a website and I plugged in my information and I got my chart. and I see this like weird graphic of a human with all these different shapes and all these weird words and numbers. And I was like, what the hell am I looking at? But one thing caught my eye, and it was the energy type, manifesting generator. I was like, manifesting generator. Interesting. I've heard a little bit about manifestation. Generator sounds like electricity. My science brain. I was like, what does it mean to be a manifesting generator? And it was like the first line just hit me. Manifesting generators are multi-passionate beings that are who are not meant to do one thing for a long time. And I was like, oh my God. I felt so seen. This is something I had been in resistance toward for my entire life. Jess, why can't you just focus on one thing? I kept feeling like if I keep changing my mind, I'm never going to get ahead. And this was my permission slip. It was this aha moment that, oh, I always want to be doing new things and different things because that's who I'm meant to be. That's who I was put on this earth to be. And when I feel called to go do something different, that's not just me being restless and non-committal. It's the universe calling me toward the next thing that I'm there to improve. So that was like, I was immediately hooked, and I did all the research and I really dug into my human design chart. And when I went all in on my coaching business, absolutely human design was a huge part of how I guide and lead my clients. A lot of my clients haven't heard of human design either because I work with purpose-driven high achievers. I basically work with that version of me, the version of me who was seeking answers and who had been in talk therapy and had meditated for many years and who was a yoga practitioner, but also a really ambitious and motivated high achiever. She was a little bit of a workaholic, but also a bit of a mystic at the same time. She had this weird duality about her. Like she was constantly trying to prove herself. And she always felt like she was going to be found out. Like if she didn't spend every waking moment working and proving herself, that people would suddenly realize like, oh, she doesn't really want to be here. Oh, like someone else could do what she does. Inevitably, those are the people that I attract in my coaching practice right now, because as Erica Rankin said in episode 2 of this podcast, you're best equipped to serve the past versions of yourself. So here we are. In this episode of Purpose Uprising, I'm speaking to someone who is very near and dear to my heart, because she allowed me to access the next level of my understanding and my integration of human design. Erin Purdy is a human design specialist and a transformation coach. She used to work as a high-level corporate consultant. She's now the co-founder of Aligned by Design, a platform, a collective with the mission of guiding people home, guiding people deeper into themselves. And so I found Erin through my research on human design. I followed Aligned by Design on Instagram. They always share like really accessible and digestible like information. And I found Erin and I was following her for a bit, and I kept being called to like book a human design reading. And my ego, kind of unconsciously kept saying like, no, like you can figure this stuff out on your own. But if there's one thing that I've learned on my coaching journey, it's that nothing is meant to be done alone. Nothing. Like we're in a world of abundance, surrounded by people who are all here for a reason and all here to shine in a different way. And so I felt called to Erin specifically to book a reading. And I did this summer. And it was so expansive. And Erin and I connected on our meeting. And we were both like, oh, we're meant to work together. Let's roll into the episode. You're going to learn a lot about the science of differentiation, what it means to come home to your authenticity. You don't need to know anything about human design to get immense value out of this episode. And at the same time, you can be someone who knows a lot about human design and you are still going to take away golden nuggets of wisdom. Okay? Let's roll into the episode.
How are you doing?
Can you hear me like loud and clear right now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. The last time I had like my mic plugged into an external, anyway, it doesn't matter, but I was like a mouse. Thankfully, I was able to increase the volume. It was such a good conversation. And then I was listening to the recording and it was like, my voice was like this. And then the guest, I was like, no,
oh my gosh. I've had my fair share of technical difficulties with podcast episodes as well. And sometimes you just, it's part of the game.
Part of the game. Like you gotta fuck up to learn the lessons.
Gotta
be willing to be bad at everything if you want to be good.
Yep.
This is what I'm calling, are you a fan of the show Friends?
I never really got into it.
That's fine. It's like you'll
but
either love it or you don't.
I can appreciate it. And it's not even that I don't love it. I've just never felt like I've had the energy to go into it and board that train.
It's cool. That train has been moving without you. So one of the characters, Phoebe, I'm sure if you don't know Friends, you still like know who.
Yes,
Phoebe
no, I do,
is kind of like unfortunately the dumb blonde archetype, which is terrible. But she's also freaking hilarious. And she's notoriously a terrible singer. And when she's sick, she has the best sultry singing voice. And so this is a combination of like, I had a cold, got married last weekend, lost my voice, and I'm calling this is like my sultry Phoebe voice.
I think it's super sexy.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
I do too.
How are you feeling after all of that excitement?
I'm feeling high on life. Like I can't explain it. Definitely sleeping a lot. Like I've been sleeping 12 hours every night over the last like 3 nights, which has been incredible because I didn't expect this because I wasn't like, I don't think I was a bridezilla by any means. I wasn't really stressed about my wedding because now husband and I, it's so weird to call him my husband, but it's so awesome. We planned like every detail. There was like thought put into it and it was so much fun. But the week before, it was just like the inevitable anticipation that was building up where like I'd be waking up in the middle of the night thinking about the most mundane details. Like I don't need to be stressing out about this, but my brain was like attaching to anything, right?
Yeah.
So I was sleeping terribly. I was like, okay, gotta sleep hygiene. Like, what do I need to fix here? And I kind of just realized like, oh, this is just kind of part of the process. It's like, it's okay. I'll sleep after. So it was a weird kind of like, what's within my control that I can fix here to like sleep better? Because I firmly believe sleep is like the one key to like a good life. If you're not well rested, you can't really show up at your full capacity. So yeah, this week I've just been oversleeping. I think making up for lost sleeping time last week. So physically I'm like recovering and I'm tired but spiritually and like I'm high on life. I'm like really want to take this feeling of overflow with me. I think I was journaling about this yesterday and like something that my coach and I have been talking about for months is this feeling of overflow. Like how can we live in this feeling of overflow? Because that's when the magic happens. And I thought I had tapped into that, And then I got married and I was in a room with like 99 people who I am obsessed with and who I share so much love with. And I was like, actually, oh my God, it's so funny, Erin. I was like, this is what the Grinch was talking about when his heart grew and then he was leaking. Like the capacity, he was literally overflowing. It was coming out of his eyes. And I'm like, whoa, this is what it is. And it was like, because I had been thinking about overflow, thinking be the operative word. Now I was feeling and embodying it. And I was like, oh, I'm not letting this go. So that's like where I'm at energetically and like spiritually right now.
Oh, that's incredible. Incredible, because the things you can create from that space. And also, like, as humans, we think sometimes we know what our capacity is to feel, or we think that we know what joy feels like. We think we know what happiness, fulfillment, love feels like. I promise you, there is always more to uncover.
Always.
And our ability to hold and to expand and to feel goes so beyond anything that we can even comprehend. And the only way to get there is to just continue to, like you said, like open up and to welcome in like the overflow. And then I think when we hit those points where we think we feel it all, capitalize on that.
Yeah.
You know, create in that space, share in that space, be in that space, because that's when you plant the seeds for the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, that's the definition of abundance that you just said. There's always another level available. And I think that's what makes life so fucking fun. Because you think like you're going to hit this step and then you're going to be happy. Well, first of all, it's not how it works. You got to be happy first, then you hit the step, but you hit it. It's like, damn, there's more. And I get to keep living until I get that next step and that next step. It's just like, this is what life is about. It's, yeah. So thank you for asking.
And I think a lot of people get stuck being really retroactive, where, you know, when you start to, because of course life is always going to be an ebb and flow. There's going to be the ups and the downs, and it's always this like cyclical nature. And so naturally there's going to be these moments of overflow and abundance, and then you're going to sink, right? Because that's the time where then you stretch. That's like the difficult, uncomfortable, like preparing for the next level. You have to shed your skin and it's not going to feel good. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that low point, and then they start chasing the previous high or something they felt in the past. Like, I wish I could just feel that again. That was so wonderful. Like, I wish I could just be there, and focusing entirely on like what they don't have, and also completely shutting off to what the potential of what's waiting for them on the other side. That like future, wait a minute, this is a like a breeding ground for a high that I haven't even tapped into yet.
Yes. It makes me think of the concept of radical acceptance. I don't know if you've like read a lot of Tara Brach. Have you heard of Tara Brach, Erin?
I've heard, but I haven't read.
She's, I think Radical Acceptance is one of her biggest books, and, or, you know, most widely known. And the whole concept is exactly that. It's like, can you be present in this moment as it is, not reaching, not living in the past, not grasping for the future? Because what you just said about this moment being fertile ground, this moment is asking for seeds to be sown. And if you're living back there or you're reaching over here, you're missing the opportunity to plant those seeds right now. And that's just like, oh, it's like just being with every moment and every human experience as it is, as it's meant to be, because we know you're here for a reason. You're experiencing this for a reason. It all comes back to purpose. Like, oh, yeah. So I'm really happy that you're here. We've had kind of a conversation, like shorter. This is going to be a bit more expansive, I would say, but we had a really lovely conversation in an Instagram live, and you and I have now been connected for a couple of months. Time flies. Time literally flies. I want to take a hot second to like say who you are. Erin. Erin is a human design specialist. And this is something that is like she has kind of stumbled in her path, like an ex corporate consultant in a really lucrative career, and now kind of working in this beautiful collective and bringing this wisdom, this self-discovery wisdom to the world through your podcast, Erin, through your collective with Aligned, right? That's the name of
Yeah.
the I don't even know what to call. I keep wanting to call it a collective because it's so special. You're working with two other human design specialists to bring this wisdom to the world. And so Erin is also a coach, a transformation coach. So I know you do some work in the one-to-one space, but I connected with you through almost like your education platform. Like I found you when I was learning more about human design for myself and integrating it into my coaching practice. And we're going to talk a little bit about human design. We have to, because a lot of people are going to be either hearing about it for the first time or just kind of like going a little bit deeper with it. But the last time we spoke, Erin, you were in Portugal, which I think is part of your brand, is like a little bit nomadic and exploring the world and kind of planting your seeds in these different places.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're chatting right now. I think you're in Chicago right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So yeah. What else would you add to that?
Yeah. I mean, you're getting very good at summarizing me and what I do. But yeah, that's exactly it. You know, I think in the last, I discovered human design 7 years ago now. And we always say in the human design world, it's a 7-year.
Isn't 7 the deconditioning cycle?
It's
Let's
the
go.
deconditioning cycle, like to let go of all of the layers that we have taken on throughout our lives that have been kind of pushed on us from our environment and all of that. It takes 7 years to let go
So
of that
wild.
truly, and I think that's sometimes a hard pill to swallow for a lot of us fast-paced, outcome oriented human beings who are like, give me the quick fix, give me the magic potion pill, right? But this work is a process. It really is. And so now I'm coming around into my 7 years of this. And the one thing that I've really just seen is that so many of us have just gotten so stuck for so long playing a role. Playing a role in a screenplay that's not our own. Right? It's like we have our script, we're reading from the papers, we're wearing the costume that the costume director puts on for us. Yeah. And all of a sudden we're standing on this stage looking around saying, how did I get here? And as you know, right? Yeah. Purpose lives and breathes within all of us. We all chose to come into these bodies, no matter what you believe and what your spirituality is. It's like we all came into these bodies for a reason. This isn't our first go around. We've done this before. We're doing it again. And we have a purpose. Mm-hmm. And at the highest level, our purpose is to be and embody our authentic true selves.
Yes.
It's to be, not to do. Yeah. Not to prove, not to perform, to just be, and to be able to sit within whatever storms, whatever beautiful things are happening, whatever experience we're having. That's what we're here for, right? We think that purpose often is an outcome, right? Or it's a title, or it's like the high. It's like the top of the pyramid, right? It's not the climb up, it's the top. That's the purpose. And the reality is the purpose is every single step of the way. Every breadcrumb that you come into, every conversation that you have, every dark night of the soul that you come into. And right now, more than ever, I think there's this need, this like reclamation of self that it's the most important work that we can do. And it's not easy. And it's a process and it takes time. And I really feel like we're doing the good Lord's work. People need to wake up. And the world is changing. Like, look around, watch the news. It's a shit show out there. It's a joke, and it's sad, and it's devastating, and again, I think people can get so stuck on picking sides and trying to like fix all these things around them when the reality is it's like, no, you're just be here, come back to yourself and trust. And so that's what I do.
Yeah, it's a big message right there. And it's like I always talk about, this is an easy way for me to kind of rationalize at the individual level. Your life, your external circumstances are a reflection of your inner landscape. And when we're talking about the world being a fucking shit show, because it is, that is a direct reflection of the inner landscape of the collective. And we're doing the work in what small, big way we can to shift that inner landscape in as many people as possible. Because when we're able to do that's, I think we're both on the same page. This is the next level of human evolution. It's a consciousness awakening. It's a conscious evolution. I remember when I first heard those words, I have goosebumps right now, because I think this is it's been a big part of my journey. And clearly this message needs to be heard. But I got into Eckhart Tolle. I don't even know how, but Eckhart Tolle was like the voice I needed probably 7 years ago. So I'm on my own 7-year. I definitely have a lot more to go with human design. But I was like, yeah, this is about waking up. It's about waking up not just as a human, it's about waking up as humanity. And I realized, oh shit, these questions I'm asking myself, why am I here? What's my purpose? This can't be it. What am I here to do? I realized like, oh, these are the big questions for everyone. And in me finding the answers for myself, that's me playing my role in raising consciousness and like big stuff.
Yeah. I was the same. I think The Power of Now.
The Power of Now.
The first or second book in that world that
I think that was the first one. A New Earth is the second one.
I think it was Untethered Soul for me first, and then Power of Now.
I read that after Eckhart Tolle. Yeah.
That's like the starter kit, like the wake up starter kit.
100%. Let's go. We just packaged it up. You can find those books used on Amazon for freaking $5. Power of Now, Untethered Soul. I love that they're both so different in the way that they present the same idea.
Yeah.
So I read The Power of Now a couple of times. The first time, completely over my head.
Yeah.
I was like, I had no idea what I was reading.
Yeah.
But I knew that it was important that I read it.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably read it again like 2 years later after I read Untethered Soul. And when I read The Power of Now the second time, I was like, oh shit, I get it now, because I'd read it from a couple different perspectives.
Yeah.
And it was like finally the puzzle pieces were coming into place.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. Power of Now was a bit dense. And so I think Untethered Soul it's a lot easier to digest. So I always tell people, I'm like, if you really haven't done any of this stuff before, you've never even looked into this work, start with Untethered Soul.
Yeah.
And like that will be something to kind of ease you into it. And then you can start to tackle some of the more dense books and ideas and things like Eckhart Tolle.
The concepts will probably land a little bit easier. The first time
I made an Instagram post like 4 years ago, and it was basically all those first books. I need to go and find it again, because I think it's a really good combination. Yeah.
I'll try to link it, or if you find it, I'll link it in the show notes. That's going to be such a good like full circle moment. It's funny. I don't know why I feel the need to share this detail, but how I found Untethered Soul, funny enough, was through that like landmark Apple Music interview with Miley Cyrus, who I'm a huge fan of. Miley, I think she's freaking fabulous. I forget what album she had just recorded, but it was this intimate interview. I forget the Apple Music guy. He's bald head, British accent, like a fantastic interviewer. And she's just like wearing her smart cowboy hat, and she got her full like glam on, and she's sitting in her studio, and she was talking about how she's reborn every single day. She was talking about how her Malibu home had burned down, And she quoted Untethered Soul. And she was like, yeah, Michael Singer, like this concept changed my life. And how there's the observer. And I was like, damn, Miley knows what's up. At this point, I had read Eckhart Tolle. I was like, I guess I got to try this. And it's so funny because you realize the people that are really creating in this world, like the true artists, they're so fucking awake. They're so connected to like that other level of consciousness. I'm like, man, I don't know Miley Cyrus personally, but I'm like, that girl's fucking connected.
Yeah.
She's on another level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. So I want to give a bit of an intro to I would like you to give a bit of an intro to human design. I'll start simply by sharing that human design has been an instrumental part of my self-discovery journey. I first learned about it about a year and a half ago was like when it really, the seed was planted. I heard about it a few years before, but it just like it never landed. And when I hired my first coach, she asked me, do you know your human design? If not, no sweat. I was like, don't know it. Extremely curious. Like, if you're asking me about this, like I'm going to check it out right now. And I plugged in my information on a random website and got my human design. I was like, I don't have any idea what this means, but here's what I am. And she like told me a little bit about it. And I was immediately hooked. I was like, this shit is on point. It felt like what was being fed back to me, what was being reflected back to me was a permission slip. And I've been like researching and integrating being a big word, because I think human design is so big. It is important to take the seeds and to allow them to integrate in their own time. Huge part of my journey. And I'm sure this will come up organically. And of course, that's how I found you. And I loved how you described it when we chatted in the Instagram live. I was like, okay, if you're going to describe if you're going to describe human design in a couple words, and you're like, it's an energetic blueprint. That's what it is. So tell us a bit about human design for anyone tuning in that's kind of new to it, and your beautiful words, Erin.
Yeah. So human design, it's the science of differentiation, which to most people, I'm like, what does that even mean? Right?
Oh, it's so good.
And
it's so good.
if we can understand that we are all made up of energy, right?
Yeah.
And not energy in this like woo-woo sense, energy in the real tangible, like let's break it down scientifically. It's
quantum
energy.
Let's go.
Quantum energy. And yes, we are all human species, but our energetic bodies are all very different. The way that we're designed to move around in the world is very different. I always like to say, imagine like our bodies are these like earthly vehicles.
Yeah.
And each vehicle has its own way of driving. It has its own operating manual. I'm a specific type of car. You're a specific type of car. I take a different kind of gas than maybe you take, right? I need different wiper fluid than you need. The way that I drive, the map that I follow is inherently going to be different because you and I are in different bodies. And what human design provides is that operating manual. It's that energetic blueprint. So your mind can look and say, okay, this is me, right? Me, my body, how I'm designed to move around in the world. Because the problem is, from the moment we're born, as I kind of alluded to earlier, it's like we receive so much conditioning about who we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to eat, how we're supposed to dress, what we should study in school, what we need to do to be successful. And all of that gets really loud, and it takes us away from our inherent wisdom. Everything that we need to know about ourselves, everything that we need to know to find our purpose, to live and to be, exists within our vehicles, in our bodies. We hold so much wisdom in this space. But we're all trying to operate from up here, from the mind.
Classic.
right? And so we take in all this information and it gets really, really noisy. And all of a sudden, it's like we're intellectualizing everything. Every decision that comes our way, we're doing pros and cons, we're outsourcing, we're asking friends, we're talking to people. We are completely cutting ourselves off from the neck down. And we're not trusting, again, our intuition, which we all
Yeah.
have access to. And we're not trusting the wisdom of our bodies. So, why human design is such an incredible science is because it's a system that was created for the mind, right? A system that you can look at, that you can touch, that you can see,
Yeah.
that you can understand simply so that your mind can start to take the back seat and let your body know what it knows how to do.
Mm,
But
yeah.
because we've been operating from up here for so long, it's like we need, before you can trust that like your gut is the way to make decisions, you need to see why that
Yeah.
is and what
Yeah.
happens when you don't listen to your gut. And that's what human design is going to outline. It's like, what are your specific mechanics? And they will be different for everyone. A big
Yeah.
part of human design is
Yeah.
connecting you to the specific voice of your unique intuition,
Mm-hmm.
because my intuition speaks to me very different than your intuition speaks to you. And when we understand the mechanics of our energy, we start to understand how we can listen in the right ways, get the messages that we're here to get. And that allows our mind to kind of calm down, take a deep breath, and get into the back seat of the vehicle, which is where it's supposed to be. The mind
Yeah.
is an
Get out of the
observer.
driver's seat. You're not
It's
supposed
an
to be there.
observer, it's researching, it's seeing the sights along the way, but it's not in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Well, for most of us, it is in the driver's seat, and that's why we experience resistance. That's why we
Yes.
experience frustration, bitterness. All of that friction is from the mind sitting, gripping the steering wheel, being like, go left, go right, go left, go right, instead of sitting in the back seat and letting
Mm,
basically the autopilot take the course.
yeah. Even the intuition part that you brought up, like isn't it wild how easily we take something that was said or something from our environment and we're like, yep, that's true. That's true, without fact checking it, for example. So where I'm going with this is trust your gut, right? Trust your gut. That's something I've been hearing since I was a kid. So I'm sure I'm not alone with this. So it's like, okay, yeah, the gut is a beautiful microbiome. There's definitely a connection between the gut and the brain, no question. However, as you alluded to, not everyone's intuition is connected to their gut. It is for me. I'm a manifesting generator, so it is for me. But that doesn't apply to everyone. And I know we're probably getting into like some advanced stuff. So like to maybe talk a little bit about how intuition is different for different energy types, because that doesn't apply to everyone. It's
Yeah, exactly.
crazy.
If someone were to tell me my whole life, Erin, just listen to your intuition, listen to your gut, I would have made so many, and I did make so many wrong decisions. Now, of course, there's no such thing as a wrong decision because sometimes
Right.
you do have to make the wrong decision to learn what the right decisions are.
Yeah.
But for me, inherently, the whole concept of the gut intuition. So, this is for anyone who has sacral authority in their human design. If you don't know your human design, I'll share a link in the show notes that I can
Yeah.
send you to
Yeah.
look up your free chart. But everyone has something called authority, and it's basically your inner authority, your inner decision-making compass, and it's going to guide you towards what is a yes and what is a no.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who has
Yeah.
sacral authority, that's gut intuition. The gut speaks in the moment, in the now, in response to yes or no questions. So for someone like you, it's like if you get an invitation, you have an opportunity in the moment, and your gut goes, uh huh, that's what you trust. You trust the
Mm-hmm.
sensation in your gut in the moment. However, for me, someone who has emotional authority, which is a process authority, it's the way of making decisions for emotionals, takes time. It takes
Mm-hmm.
riding out this emotional wave that we're always kind of floating on. And so if someone were to say, Erin, just listen to your gut. Well, guess what? My emotions are louder than my gut intuition. And also my
Yeah.
gut intuition is really inconsistent. It's not a part of my mechanical design. So if I'm trying to listen to a gut instinct that's not really there, I'm going to start misinterpreting based on where I'm at on my emotional wave. And if I'm on a high in the moment, I'm going to be really spontaneous and say yes, but then I'll all of a sudden, like, my emotional wave will teeter out and I'll be like, why the hell did I say yes? Right. Or in the
Yeah.
converse, if I'm on an emotional low, then I might again make a spontaneous decision from that low frequency place. And
Mm.
that's going to drive me into the wrong direction. So listen to your gut, Erin, isn't helpful. But if I didn't know my mechanics, if I didn't know my design, well, then it's really easy to just be like, okay, yes, no, maybe, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to this is just so interesting to me because I think obviously we are receiving stimulus every second of every day. It's insane, especially with social media these days. But even like driving by and seeing a billboard, we take that for granted. Our brain is logging that as information, and we don't even know. I was listening to this podcast. It was an archival like Tim Ferriss episode. I'm kicking myself. I forget the woman's name. She was awesome. I think she was like an executive at Stripe. I think she had worked at Google before, and it was an awesome conversation. One of her quote unquote tips, right? Because Tim Ferriss is all about unpacking people's routines and productivity hacks and wellness hacks as well. And she was like, one of her practices is she says no before she says yes. So she will never say yes at the first opportunity. So if someone invites her to do something, sit on a board, speak at an event, she'll always say no. And then she'll process it and she'll say yes. And it's like,
She probably
that
has
to
emotional
me
authority.
sounds very much like an emotional authority. Whereas, and I thought about that and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. It's funny because days later, I asked my brother to speak at my wedding. And he was like, give me some time to think about it, which I knew he was going to speak at my wedding. Like he's just it's in the stars. But of course, I didn't press it. I was like, he needs a space to make the decision. Whereas for me, as a sacral authority, I have to listen to my gut response. That advice doesn't apply to me. If I'm going to like actually say no to everything and then try to process it, I might miss the moment where my sacral is actually telling me yes or no. So it's just so interesting because like, especially people who are so into personal development and constantly taking in and learning and learning and learning. If you don't know your blueprint, you risk taking in quote unquote advice that simply doesn't apply to you. And
Yeah.
where do we draw the line? How do we know? Because we're taking in so much information. So this is just an example. Like, there was so much that this woman shared, so much wisdom that I thought was so interesting. That doesn't necessarily mean it applies to me. As a coach, it probably applies to a lot of my clients. But like when we're kind of, obsessed with the getting better or being better train of like, I'm going to evolve, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. It's like, well, yeah, but know what your blueprint is first. Like, just got so riled up about that. And yeah,
Exactly.
just
It's a way to filter information. Like
yes.
human design, I mean, there's so many applications for it, first and foremost, right? Because you just have something tangible to work with that you can wake up every day and use the tools of human design to make better decisions, to take action in the way that's aligned for you. But then beyond that, too, it's like all the information that we're taking in this age of information that we live in, right? It allows you to more effectively filter through all of that energy, right? Because information is also energy that we are taking
Yeah.
in. Know your blueprint, then you know how you take that in
Yeah.
and how to utilize
Yeah.
it if you're meant to utilize it at all. But again, for
Yeah.
a world that is so stuck in their head, we don't want to keep just pounding more information, more information, more information. It is so overwhelming. We get stuck in this crippling anxiety and this like inability to focus and to keep attention because all of the things that are spinning. So if all of a sudden you have a tool that can center yourself back in and understand that like, oh, some of this information, yeah, that might work for some people, but I know because of my design that it's
Yeah.
not really gonna support me. I can therefore then just let that go. That can just kind of
Yeah.
screen through me and I can focus on what is right for me and what my body is telling me and the things that are present for me right now.
Yeah. How do you do that with the letting go piece? Because I would just want to talk about like how to, it's one thing to know, right? So you got your human design, you look at your chart, you're like, wow, I just learned so much about myself. I mean, you could say the same thing about any personality assessment, Myers-Briggs type
Mhm.
indicator, strengths finder, astrology, whatever. Same with, and like to a point with therapy, right? You'll go to a talk therapy session, you'll be like, wow, I didn't realize I needed to let that out. Wow, I'm so self-aware of this now. Now I got to do something about it. I got to embody it. When you just said, let go, this has been, I think this is really important. And it's going to be different for everyone, of course, because everyone has a different blueprint. But how do you
Right.
actually do the letting go piece? How does that happen for you? And maybe talk about how it's specifically for your energy type. But I'm so interested. Is there a
Yeah.
practice? Yeah.
Well, this is again, it's very nuanced because the advice for letting go is going to be incredibly unique for everyone. What I can
Okay.
speak
Let's
to is
talk
maybe
about that.
my example, and then maybe I can
Yeah.
also speak to you and your design.
Yeah.
I am a projector in
Mm-hmm.
design, and I have what's called a passive brain. I have a passive brain, I have a passive body. I have a receptive brain, as if the contrast to that is strategic. It's like we have strategic, we have receptive. So anyways, my
Do all projectors have what you just
no,
described? Passive body. Okay. Okay.
no, no. So projectors in themselves are what we call non-energy types, non-sacral energy types. So unlike the generators and manifesting generators like you, who are these builders, these creative powerhouses, these generators of energy, we have inconsistent access to our own. So the way that we work, the way that we show up, the way that we create is very, very different. And that's because our role on earth is very different. We are here to guide, not necessarily to build from the ground up. And even when it comes to letting go, like it's not going to be type specific. It's going to be more related to what energy is consistent for you and what energy is inconsistent. But I know for me,
Right.
it's really come down to slowing down. And I will say this applies to all projectors. We are the most conditioned when it comes to like
Yeah.
the hustle culture because we have this inability to know when enough is enough, and the world around us is like living these 9 to 5 lives. It's all
Yeah.
about like working, producing, and all of these things, and we actually cannot hold that. So the best thing that I have ever done, and the best thing and the necessity for any projector, is to slow down and to just pause. And then it's just about sitting with whatever sensations come up and like getting to know the inner landscape and the voices in your mind that are telling you, if I'm not doing this, I'm going to fall behind. If I don't do more, then I'm not going to be successful. And just like getting to know that world within the voices in your mind. And as soon as I can start to identify the narratives in my head, then I have something tangible to work with, and I can say,
Yeah.
wait, does this belong to me? Is
Yeah.
this actually me, or is this conditioning? Is it that pressure? Is it that expectation? And then it's about finding the right tools to start to like reroute your focus. So instead of giving my energy to those beliefs, it's okay, how do
Mm-hmm.
I stay in my body? How do I slow down? Whether it's meditation, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's, for me, surfing has been a really, really
Mm.
beautiful tool. Any way that we can just be in our body. Now, if you're a generator, if you're a manifesting generator and you're an energy type, and again, you want to just start like letting go or doing this process of deconditioning, it might look a lot more physical than
Mm.
the more passive approach that I'm doing, right? So it might be physical exercise, sweating, going for a run. It could even just be it could be breath work. It still can be meditation. It's like all the tools, there's so many tools out there. And it's about finding the ones that feel right for you and that your
Yeah.
authority pulls you toward.
Mm.
But like I said, it's really hard to give like a blanket
Yeah, you
answer because
can't.
there's so
You can't.
many pieces that you're going to look at. Like, do you have an active brain? Do you have a passive brain? Do you have a
Yeah.
defined head? Do you have an undefined head? What's your sacral doing? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love this because I love hearing your example because I can certainly share mine as well. But to know, yeah, how different and how unique this can be for each person. Actually, I have a question on projector types because one of my a couple of my clients are projectors. Actually, quite a few of my clients are projectors. And one of the biggest themes with projectors who are on a self-discovery and personal empowerment journey is realizing that they've been conditioned to live in a generator world, a 9 to 5 world. It's kind of like Susan Cain talks about introverts thriving in an extroverted world because society is really built to favor extroversion, which, you know, you could probably draw the contrast that it's generators and manifesting generators versus other energy types as well. And so I guess what I would love your perspective on, Erin, because I'm sure there are so many people that are going to be listening to this who are kind of in a 9 to 5. Like, is it possible for a projector to thrive in a 9 to 5? Is where I'm going with this. Is it possible for a projector to thrive in a 9 to 5? How do they do
I
that?
think anything's possible. And
I
it all
totally
comes
agree.
down to how much autonomy you have over your environment.
Mm. Yeah.
It's all about the environment because as projectors, we're taking in the sacral energy of our environments. And a 9 to 5 can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, Kim. I think the 9 to 5 is dying. Let's be clear about that. I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
it is. It is. But for the context of
Yeah.
this conversation, we're going to keep talking about it.
Will sitting at a desk from 9 to 5 work for a projector? No.
I don't think it
Like
works for anyone, to be
for anyone.
honest.
Also true. Anyone. Um, Projectors, though, inherently need more breaks. We need more rest. We need more alone time. So if that's something that can be baked into the typical, 9 to 5 or even just office culture life, then
Mm-hmm.
it can be sustainable, right? If you have the freedom and the flexibility to listen to your body and to be able to go and take breaks if you need to take a break, to be able to be alone if you need to be alone. But if it's like the expectation is when you're on and you're there, it will take its toll. I promise you, I have experienced it myself. And it's just,
Yeah.
it is the reality. And I will say it's not easy to be a projector. Projectors make up 20% of the population, and we are one of the most conditioned design types. And the reality is maybe like 5% of that 20 are actually living their design. The rest are trying to be generators and manifesting generators. And
Mm-hmm.
to go back to myself quickly, like I I was so conditioned and also even like self-conditioned. Like projectors are here to see others.
Mm-hmm.
The way that we see the world cannot be described to other types. It's just an inherent awareness of our environment and other people. And so the reason why sometimes the projectors are the most conditioned is because they're seeing more clearly than everyone else what's working or what's socially acceptable or what's getting approval.
It's like
And then
hyper
they
awareness. It's
hyper
like
awareness.
blessing
And
and a
then it's
curse.
okay, if I want to have that outcome, then I just need to do that. And so I grew up in
Mm.
an environment where I'm mostly surrounded by generators, even in my like core family unit.
Yeah.
And I learned very early, unfortunately, to hate a lot of my gifts and a lot of my
Yeah.
uniqueness.
Yeah.
It really like I've done a lot of shadow work, which is like reclaiming those parts of myself. But I have this inherent shyness that when I was young, I thought it was the worst thing about me. And so
Yeah.
I trained myself to become the most extroverted, the
Yeah.
most outgoing, the most, right, like
Yeah.
social person that I could be
Like a
because I
freaking
saw how much
pendulum swinging to
easier
the other end.
it seemed for everyone around me who was that way.
Mm.
And it always felt so hard for me to be shy or to be more introverted. So it's I went so far that it's like I was so convinced that I was that person. And part of why my self-discovery journey was like so intense early on was because I had to let go of an identity that I put so much time and energy into creating, but it was also an identity that would have killed me if I kept it around.
Mm.
And I worked in an environment where we were working, not even a 9 to 5. It was like an 8 to 8 kind of environment. Every single meal we're eating behind our computer screens in a team room with people all the time. And I wonder why my health was suffering and why I felt so miserable, because my system, my energy cannot sustain that over time.
Wild. Yeah. I think something from our human design reading that we did a couple months ago that really hit, a lot of it hit, but it was the I'm not enough story that you were able to pinpoint just by looking at my chart, where I felt like you were speaking to me. Like we had just met. Maybe I filled in a bit of a form, but you didn't really know that much about me. And yet when we were doing this reading, it felt like you knew everything, which was mind blowing to me. Mind blowing. We're talking about getting out of the mind. But when you said, like, yeah, with this undefined heart center, because in human design, for those of you, anyone tuning in that's going to like look at their chart for the first time, maybe the second time, maybe the third time, and you're going to see these interesting shapes in this graph. Maybe I'll put up a graphic at this point. And there's energy centers. It's very much connected to the chakra system. And when you're like, yeah, you have an undefined heart center, which is very common. I think, am I wrong? 80% of the population 70% of the population with an undefined heart center. And the most common affliction or story, which is something we take in from the environment, is this mine or someone else's? I love asking that question, is I'm not enough. And like, I remember doing this wild neo-emotional release breathwork session with actually Kendra Fox, who was on the last episode of this podcast. And that's what kept coming up. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. It's what has come up with my current coach, who's a business, but also a soul mentor. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. And I thought it was just me. And when you pinpointed that, no, babe, that's the undefined energy center. This is your work, is to defuse from that story, which is not yours. It's coming from the environment around you. You're soaking it in and you're amplifying it. And it has been so refreshing to be able to relate to that, as of course the story still comes up. Of course it does. The story still comes up, but now I'm with that knowledge, because as you said, it is so much easier to rationalize when we see it, when we have a basis for it. And I'm like, that's okay. That's not mine. That's not mine. And I am able to let it go so much easier, even though I thought I was doing all the work. I thought I was doing great, but I just needed you to tell me that. And I was like, easy. Every time it comes up, I'm like, I can so much more easily let it go. That's been big.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you can see it from that lens of like, this is my work. This is part of my purpose, actually.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
like
exactly.
open centers in our design, it's like those are going to be where our greatest challenges lie. That's where our deepest wounding is going to be, our greatest conditioning. But that in itself is part of our purpose. That in itself, it's the healing that we do. It's the self-acceptance that we do. It's being able to identify, is this mine or is this coming from that wounding that I'm taking in, that not enoughness? And then you can just witness it and let it be. It's that concept of being an observer. And then the moment you can just let it be, it takes the power away, right? So someone with an undefined heart center, like you, like me, like 70% of the population, they're going to be fighting most of their life to try to prove to the world around them that they are worthy. These are going to be people who, again, it's like the driving force within them when they're acting out of alignment, when they are acting according to that programmed script of not enoughness, are going to try to keep doing more, keep proving themselves, going out into the world, trying to show everyone what they can do, what they can accomplish, who they are, because underneath that is this belief that they're not enough.
Yeah.
And then the challenge is to be able to witness, wait a minute, I am inherently enough just by being here.
Mm-hmm.
And when I can stop giving power to that voice that tells me I'm not enough, all of a sudden I tap into a new superpower, which is my ability to see the worthiness in the world around me
Mm-hmm.
and to empower others to step into their worthiness and to guide others back to that place of wholeness within. But you can only step into that superpower when you do the work of
Yeah.
deconditioning that story for yourself.
Yeah. Which I think is where a lot of the benefits of mentorship and coaching come into play. Because what's that saying about being in the jam jar? You can't read the label from inside the jam jar. And this is where like having guidance, from the right person, where if you're sacral, if you're emotional, you'll find the right people for you. But it's like it accelerates the process where you can come back to your truth quicker and without so much suffering. And I'm saying this because I feel like I've been on a self-discovery journey my entire life. Like I've just always been wired to ask the questions like, why? And I was constantly seeking and looking for answers outside of myself until finally I was given permission because I found the right guides. I was finally given permission to like go inside because I don't know if you had a similar experience, Erin, when you were kind of like navigating the transition from corporate to doing what you're doing now, which is very much living in your purpose. A lot of people would look at what you're doing and say, wow, that's really unconventional. And it shouldn't be. But wow, that's really unconventional. Look at this woman creating herself. For me, one of the scariest things, and maybe this is because I have a filled in head, one of the scariest things was to sit in silence with myself and with my thoughts. Like, which is why I was so adamant about like, I need to become an expert at meditating because meditating is going to help me do this. And it did. It did to a point. But yeah, sitting in silence with my thoughts and not constantly doing something that was the most terrifying thing. It was so hard to do it. I did it and it was painful and it led me on the journey that I'm on. But I think as soon as I hired a coach and I invested in mentorship, the growth, the acceleration, what I have lived through in the last year and a half far surpasses the journey I've been on for over 10 years. 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that ability to just, when we have someone else that can reflect back to us what we're not seeing,
Yeah.
it just accelerates that process so, so much.
Yeah. Did you have mentorship coaching? Like what did your maybe we won't call it self-discovery journey. Maybe what did your transition from the conditioned 8 to 8 that you were living? Like,
Yeah.
how did you navigate that?
It was a lot of taking leaps of faith.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of it was stepping into the unknown, and I didn't have any form of mentorship for most of my journey, actually. I've done a lot of self just work,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've tapped into different healers along the way. So a lot of like somatic work, a lot of energy work, things like that. But I'm someone who also, like you, I have a defined head. I have a very active mind. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a projector too, so it's like I'm just here to see the world around me. And actually for projectors, it's funny, generators are here to know themselves. Projectors are here to know the other.
Wow.
And I think so much of my journey was actually about just getting out in the playground of life and observing, and then seeing what my observations were showing me about myself and decluttering whatever I needed to declutter within me. So I, my path was much more extreme than most people have to take, but it's like I quit my corporate job
Yeah.
and I booked a one-way flight to Indonesia.
Yeah. Wild.
And I ended up spending 2 years out in Asia between
Wow.
starting in
2
Indonesia
years.
and then in Sri Lanka. And I was there for all of COVID. And I just knew, like, I had this knowing, and this is part of my design. You have this as well. It comes from the channel that connects our head to our ajna center. But there's like an inner knowing that sometimes comes, and it like, you can't force it, and it's not all the time, but like these insights, these ahas, these pings come through. And I just had this knowing that I had to get out of the US. I had to be in a new environment if I wanted to do all of the work that I knew that I needed to do, because
Yeah.
human design painted that picture very clear that where I am now in this environment is very misaligned from who I'm here to be. And I didn't know if I could bridge the gap staying put. So that's why I was like, I'm just going to take the leap of faith. And I sat on that decision. I went through my emotional wave. Like, I made that decision in January, but I didn't actually do it until September. So it was like
Wow.
calculated risk
Yeah.
taking.
Yeah.
And I just started living my life and slowing down. Not working was one of the greatest things I could have done for a year and a half. Right. I'm
Wow.
grateful that I had the corporate job that I had, that allowed me to save money, that allowed me to not work
Yeah.
for a year and a half in
Part of the
Asia.
journey. Yeah.
Yep. And just not working was really great for my nervous system. And to not be in that environment and to just be around people and to be able to observe. And the more that I was in that environment, the more my gifts started to turn on even more. And the more I started to be recognized, because projectors are here to be recognized. When we are recognized, we will then be invited to share our wisdom, which is what our purpose is: to guide, to provide wisdom, to provide insight, to provide improvements of how things can be done better. And, landing in the life that I'm in now happened so organically. I didn't push for it. I didn't make a decision like, I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to do human design. Like, it found me by the deconditioning process that I went through, by just committing to living my design in the best way that I could, by committing to healing whatever I needed to heal. And so anyways, that didn't really answer your question, which was like,
No,
did I have
it
mentors?
was beautiful.
And I didn't early on, but like I said, I did. I had support and I had allies along the way that I would kind of sample from depending on where I was. When I was in Bali, of course, I had a lot more access to different healers, and I'm always just very open to new things. So whether it's like hypnotherapy, energy work, shamanic work, plant medicine, like, I've done so much of that. And I
That was
have had,
that's mentorship for you. That
yeah,
was it.
exactly.
Those were your guides.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what
Mhm.
a lot stuck with me from what you just shared about your journey. But hypnotherapy, like, has been a game changer for me, because I've been meditating for probably 10 years. I remember it's so funny. I picked up this book by Andy Puttycombe, who's the founder of Headspace. And the reason I picked up the book is like literally how to like start meditating for 10 minutes every day. It was on like Bill and Melinda Gates' reading list that year. Like, that's so funny. It's so random. I was like, well, if Bill and Melinda Gates are meditating and I've been curious about meditating, I'm going to pick up this book. And that's how I started. And I used the Headspace app for a really long time. It was a fabulous like entry point for me. All to say, one thing that I've learned about my human design as a manifesting generator is that routines are actually not helpful. Like, I get bored, and then I get angry at myself for getting bored. Like, why can't you just commit to one thing? But routine is a killer for me. It kills my vibe. It kills my energy. And meditation was something I was so committed to. I'm very disciplined, as you know, any meditation and mindfulness teacher will tell you. It requires discipline and consistency. And with my current coach, we were talking about this at one point. I think I had a bit of a turning point in February this year where she's like, all right, we got to completely overhaul your like routine. Like, fuck routines. It's got to be rituals for you. She's like, I don't know what you're doing for meditation, but you need to switch it up. And I was like, what do you mean switch it up? Like, I've been doing like breath meditate, like Vipassana style meditation for the last 10 years. Like, I'm not quitting now. She's like, Jess, you got to try some new things. You can always come back to Vipassana, but you have to open your mind to new things, because that's what you're here to do. It's how you're here to move. And that's when I started hypnosis meditation. And I don't know if this has to do with our full heads, Erin. Maybe you have a thought on that, but something about being guided, like, to a point, meditation is certainly helpful to get some distance from your thoughts and to practice allowing them to move through like clouds in the sky. But it has been incredibly helpful, that the neuro-linguistic programming aspect of it, of like being able to like program new beliefs, chosen beliefs, but it's been an absolute game changer for me. And so basically I'll bring it full circle, but I have to change my quote unquote routine all the time. Fuck routine. I just got to do what feels good. Sometimes it's silent meditation. Sometimes it's hypnosis meditation. Sometimes it's breath work. And I'm still working with that of like, don't worry if you're not doing breath work every single day. It's okay.
Yeah, this is
okay
huge.
To do something else.
This is huge for you, because on all fronts, it's like your mechanics are not designed for that consistent routine. And I'll kind of touch on a few of them, but it's like you're a manifesting generator, multi-passionate. So your interests, what you're like diving into, is always going to be changing throughout your life. You have a passive body and a receptive mind, which means consistency in your routines is not nourishing to your body. You need to wake up and feel into what's present for you, what's exciting for you. And you also have the channel of rhythm, which is like one of the most in-tuned channels of the body. Like it is this sacral affinity to nature and your environment, and this need to be in flow with yourself and your sacral and your environment. So like, and so your rhythms and your flow is going to be inconsistent, and it's going to be multi-passionate, and trying to be really, really structured is going to actually deplete your body versus nourish it. So when you can just take the pressure off, and I love like ritualizing routine. So it's just, my routine is that I wake up in the morning and I tune in with my body and I feel into the flow of where I'm at and how I'm feeling and what is exciting for me right now. And also with guided meditations as well. Like, I think that's really helpful, because with a receptive brain, your mind, your conscious mind, is not here to be really specific and strategic. And so I think sometimes with Vipassana meditation, it's like the pressure is on the mind to guide you, to stay focused when you're not supposed, like your brain isn't here to function that way. So a guidance allows your brain to just be receptive and allow the guidance to just take you, as opposed to doing the targeted focus yourself.
Yeah. It's like, I was thinking almost like it's able to turn off, because it's like, Jesus, take the wheel.
Yes,
just someone take the wheel. Yeah. Oh, that makes so much. It's just so interesting. This is why I love human design. There's, again, we talked earlier about how levels of development or levels of happiness, levels of love, you hit this level and there's always more available. And it's like, there is always more available. There's more connectiveness, connective tissue available for you. There's more alignment available. And it's just high on life still here, Erin. High on life. You also, I want to bring this back to something you said, and then we can slowly wrap our way into our little lightning round and close out this conversation. I don't want it to close out, but I also have so much. I booked so much time with you in your calendar. So I'm going to be respectful of that. But you said something to the effect of you jump and then the safety net appears. And we talked about how so many people want the certainty and the guarantee of the safety net before they jump. But even in your story, you talked about taking the leap of faith. You jumped. And of course, the safety net appears. And like this whole discomfort around uncertainty, and I'm bringing this back to purpose, because purpose, it is self-trust. It's self-trust that you are here to be you. And that when you are you, literally, not only is everything going to work out, it's going to work out at the highest level of success and abundance. And if I could just jam that belief into everyone's subconscious mind, I fucking would.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything you would add to that thought? That line is yours, Erin. It's not mine.
I think, yeah, it's like exactly like you said, we as a collective are so afraid of discomfort and change and uncertainty. And the more that we are in tune with our bodies and listening to our intuition, the more held we're going to feel through these transitions. Because the reality is, taking a leap of faith, if that leap has been, you've been guided to that leap by your intuition, then there's no world in which you can't take that leap. Like if you want to live the life that you're here to live. So for me, it's just like sometimes the fear never goes away, but it starts to feel like this fun game. Like I'm playing in this game and opportunities come up or situations come up. I feel uncomfortable and I tune in and I go, okay, what's here for me? What's my body telling me? And if I then know and I go through my process, which is going through my emotional wave, and it's like, okay, you still have to do that uncomfortable thing. You still have that clarity. Then I can be like, yes, it's uncomfortable, but this is fun because I know that following this is what is right for my path. And it's going to lead to something. It's going to lead to, to circle back to where we started that episode. It's like, it's going to lead me to that next level. That next experience of abundance and of overflow. And when you know that at some point is waiting for you on the other side of the leap of faith, how can you not take it? Yeah. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get within discomfort.
Of course. It's the whole nervous system recalibration. Fear just means you've met your edge and this is your opportunity, if of course your intuition is agreeing with you, to stretch. And when you stretch, a whole new world like opens up to you. The right world opens up to you. Yeah. It's really beautiful stuff. What's next for you right now, Erin? I know you've been hosting retreats. You've been like in group settings, you've been traveling, you've been building a collective, you've been building an app, an education platform. Like what's feeling like the next really aligned step for you right now?
I feel like I'm in such a chapter of building. And I know I said earlier, projectors aren't here to build. Well, there's nuances. I have a team and all of these things.
Exactly. You have a team. You know what's up.
So I know how to do this in the right way. But it really is a season of building. And it's really cool to finally be in a place after doing this work for so long to have such clarity on the impact that I'm here to have. And so right now I'm in a bit of a hibernation period. I have a month where I'm sitting here in Chicago with zero distractions, nobody around, nothing to do besides just focus on building what I'm building and my craft and my ways of impacting the world. But I have a retreat coming up in Puerto Rico in November.
Amazing.
And another retreat in Portugal in April. So definitely starting to put more of an emphasis on these group containers, because I think, as we really highlighted in the beginning of the episode, it's like there's this need to wake up and there's a need to find ourselves, but there's also a need for community. And there's a need to be seen and held and received by other like-minded people, right? Especially in this world where it just feels like division is all around us and it's always picking sides, pointing fingers. There's so much fear and hate, because that's the point of division, right? It's 100%. The more divided we are, the more easy we are to control. So what can we do as an individual, which is where the waking up comes from, is A, we start to heal ourselves if we want to heal the world. And also we find out, how do we bridge the gaps? How do we come together instead of continue to be apart? So that's what really excites me about retreats and in-person experiences, and being able to bring human design into experiences just to make them even more targeted and unique. Because again, I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach. Everything needs to be tailored based on our own mechanics. So that's something we bring into the retreats that's really exciting. And
that's
then,
incredible.
as you said, like aligned is also sort of like my baby. It's how you found me. It's an online platform, and it's really to provide a space for people to connect to their intuition, to their unique intuition, right? Using the lens of human design, how do we come into ourselves? And this is for people, like, if you don't need to know anything about your human design, or you can know a lot about your human design, but I almost think of it as like a boot camp or a training camp, where you come in and actually not just learn about your unique mechanics, but you have practices and tools that you can start to play with to strengthen the trust muscles. And again, to do it within a community where you are held and received and going through the process with other like-minded people, or with other people that have similar mechanics to you, that are going through the same struggles, or facing the same blocks and overcoming that together. So retreats, the online platform, and one-on-one work is what's happening for me.
Amazing. I love how you're just totally lighting up as you speak about it. It's so clear that you are yourself aligned. And that's why I was so passionate about obviously having you on this podcast, which is about people living on purpose and doing extraordinary things by being themselves. It's like finding ease and finding abundance through self-acceptance and through self-worth. It's like, that's what this is about. And obviously, like, stoked that my clients get human design readings with you, because that, is a game changer. When you know your human design, it is just an absolute game changer. So I'm going to ask you my little set of lightning round questions.
Yay.
And then don't let me forget, let's do this now. Where can people find you to learn more about human design and your retreats, as I get my little questions up on my screen?
Yeah, so I think Instagram is probably the best place to find me. So my Instagram is Erin X Purdy, and I'm sure we'll have these in the show notes. And for target, like human design, the platform, all of that, that's Aligned by Design, and it's spelled a little bit funky. So again, just go to the show notes. And then my retreats are the Reclamation retreats. If you just go to my Instagram, you can find all of these things. So Erin X Purdy. And then of course I have a website. All of those things can be found through Instagram, but that's the best way to find me, find my offerings, my mentorship programs, book human design readings, all that good stuff.
Amazing. Okay. So this is probably geared toward more sacral types that are just like, bam, that's my answer. So feel free to...
I'm horrible at these questions, but I'll do my best.
All right. Feel free to take your pause as you need to. Let's be aligned here for you. It's just 5 questions. I finally settled on a repetitive set of questions. I was like wavering. Every episode was a new set of questions. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So, question number 1. What did you want to be when you grew up? when you were growing up, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
So I never had a thing. There was never like, I think because also with the conditioning of our school system and stuff, it was like the things that I like to do, I never saw as a potential future. Like I was an incredible writer always when I was young. It was so easy for me to write. Things in school were easy, but I'm like, oh, what? Am I going to be a writer? No, of course not. I definitely wanted to travel. I think that was a huge thing. And I maybe always tried to find, okay, what jobs would allow me to travel, but I never really connected with any of them. But I was obsessed with these like little magazines I would get when I was a kid that had these like high-end luxury kids 2 weeks camps to like Fiji and all of these places that like in no world could my family have ever afforded, but I would just get lost in like the pages and just knowing that places like this in the world existed.
And now you're hosting retreats in Puerto Rico and Portugal.
Yeah.
Killing it. We love that.
Yeah.
Do you think this is not part of the lightning round questions, but do you think that like you'll write a book, or you're obviously doing a lot of writing in your social content, but is that something that you're still like connected with?
I could see it happening in the future.
Yeah.
I don't have the capacity for it now. And this is the
Yeah,
kind of difficulty of like building businesses and being a projector, is that I don't have energy for personal creativity. All my creativity is going into my businesses and like, yeah, exactly. And it is a creative outlet, but writing for me, like, especially like, cause I used to write poetry and I love to write, but I only do that when there's just like so much space for it. So I could definitely see myself writing something in the future. I think I would need to turn my babies into adolescence before that would happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I could see, well, for you, it's all about the invitation, right? It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
Okay. On the note of books, we kind of already touched on this, but a book that everyone should read.
Also so hard because of so many, but because we already spoke about it, I do think like The Untethered Soul is especially like entry level kind of books. Another really good one, random, just popped into my head for all the women. Pussy, a Reclamation.
Love that.
Is really good.
I've never read it, so I am adding that to my list.
Yeah. It's by this woman called Mama Gina. Her name's like Gina something or other, but she really is on the leading edge of just like sexual empowerment, femininity, all of that work. And that's been a huge like healing journey for me, is accepting and healing like my relationship with my feminine. And that's like generational stuff for my family. Generational. So it's been deep. And that was one of the books that really started to like open that up for me.
Did you say Reclamation was in the title?
Yeah, it's called Pussy, a Reclamation.
How many times that word is appearing in the title of this episode? Reclamation is like the theme. It's come up so many times.
Yeah. That's why also my retreats are called like my retreat
the Reclamation retreats.
The Reclamation retreats.
Yeah. One of my like primer programs I called Rediscover and Reclaim. Reclamation has been a big theme for me, which clearly, I mean, you and I are here. We're aligned. Best piece of advice you have received? I know.
Again, just because we spoke about it in this episode, and I don't even know how this advice was received or where I found it or if I found it. That whole concept of the net's going to appear after you jump.
Yeah.
Don't wait for the net to take the leap of faith. Jump, and then you'll notice the net falls and catches you.
Worst advice you've received? I'm sure there's a lot as a projector.
Listen to your gut, Erin. Just listen to your gut. Like, you know.
You're like, that doesn't fucking work.
So yeah.
And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh man, there's so many things I would say. I think I would just tell her to hold on. It's funny, like when I think about giving advice, I'm like, well, the reality is I wouldn't want her to change anything that she did because it had to happen exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
But I would just tell her, like, hold on, it gets better.
It gets so much better. It's always
And I
more.
would give her the biggest hug.
Yeah. Like I would just play hide and seek with her. I was like,
Yeah.
she doesn't need to hear anything. Just play.
Oh, just play.
Yeah. Our inner child just wants to spend some quality time with us, you know?
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Erin. This has been just so nourishing and lovely and so much wisdom as usual. This
Yeah, I
totally
loved
won't
it
be the
so
last
much.
time. Yeah,
No.
me too. No, definitely not. I love you so much. I have so much love in my heart for you. Yeah. Thank you for being here. Okay. So now you know why I'm obsessed with Erin Purdy. She is such a gem. If you are a manifesting generator or a projector in human design, you probably took a lot of actionable takeaways from that. And if you're any other energy type, there's a wealth of knowledge about you literally waiting to be unpacked in your human design chart. So you can get your free human design chart on Erin's website. It's linked in the show notes, Aligned by Design. Highly recommend that you follow Erin and you follow Aligned by Design on Instagram. They're always sharing like really good content. So this has got me all jazzed up and excited because Erin and I have collaborated. So every client who comes into my coaching containers gets a one-to-one human design reading with Erin. And this was really important to me. It feels as though I've had an ego death every month of the last year, but particularly the week before my wedding. I'll do a podcast episode on this. When I had COVID, I think I shed a whole identity. And like, I'm a new woman. I just am. I'm here. And my business is entering a whole new stage of its evolution. A human design reading with Erin is one puzzle piece or one thread or whatever you want to call it in your beautiful tapestry. And it's like not about learning anything new, right? It's not. Human design is a permission slip. It's like, oh, that explains a lot. Oh yeah, I knew that, but okay, yeah, I can now fully claim this and own it. One of my clients recently had a reading with Erin, and she was like, it was amazing. It was also a little bit frustrating. I was like, tell me why. And she's like, it was a bit frustrating because it was like, I already knew this, and yet I hadn't claimed it, and I'd been in resistance to it for years. So you can see, like, this is the permission slip. It's one part of the journey. I have other collaborators in my coaching containers. So when you enter my world, you are not just getting me as your guide home to who you really are and to your untapped potential. You're getting all of these pieces that have added value to my journey. So Erin, Kendra Fox as a breathwork facilitator, we have a breathwork session with her. Your journey is not just your journey. Your journey is about finding your people. Energy and being surrounded by the right people is literally everything. It's so funny. I've been reading Think and Grow Rich, the original classic by Napoleon Hill. And, you know, I literally have a coaching mastermind as one of my coaching containers. And I never really understood the origins of the mastermind. Mastermind, 2 words, originated by like Andrew Carnegie and Henry Ford and like all of these like old thinkers. They became extremely wealthy because they unlocked a secret that your reality can be shaped by your thoughts. Hence the title of this book, Think and Grow Rich. And one of the tenets of growing rich in your life through thought is realizing your own ignorance and choosing to surround yourself with people that can not only bolster you and teach you things, but that can be trusted collaborators in co-creating the life that you are truly here to live and the movement that you're here to lead. You are not here to do this alone, nor am I. And I had to get over this. My coaching business was like the result of a mastermind. I built it in a mastermind, surrounded by other coaches who were building their businesses and guided by a coach. Like everything I have done has been the result of masterminding with people. So I'm sharing this because right now, as this podcast is being aired, I have 2 high-level offers in my coaching spaces. One is a coaching mastermind where you will be in community with other purpose-driven leaders who are getting clear on their vision and getting to know themselves and what they are here to do. And the second container is a private one-to-one mentorship container with me. So those typically run for 6 months. The coaching mastermind is a 4-month container. So these are just 2 options. I also have a brand new 10-day guide to purpose. This is totally free to give you that momentum to start on this journey. So it's a free 10-day guide. You can connect with me directly on Instagram. You can DM me the word clarity and I will send you that guide. So DM at Coach Jess O'Kane with the word clarity and you will get your free 10-day guide. If you got value from this episode, if you had your own aha moments, not only do I want to hear about it, I would love to ask you for a favor. If you could share a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, on Spotify, on Apple, wherever, leave a review. This would mean the world because reviews on podcasts are what actually contribute to their reach for other people to find them. And in this early stage, growth is everything. So if you took something away from this episode, take a moment, share a review on this episode. That would mean the world. Remember to follow so that you get notified of episodes. And I'm so grateful that you're here. Literally so grateful that you're here. Stay tuned for next week's episode, which is going to be more of a solo journey where I'm going to walk you through some of the most transformative pivotal moments in my growth journey. I'm really excited to share more on that, and I'll see you next week.